Got a free STIHL FS80 here. Had a customer that bought a new one from the STIHL dealer and didn't want their old one anymore, so see if this thing's worth fixing, see if we can make it run. Doesn't smell that bad. It's got decent compression. Seems pretty good. I'll go ahead and choke it, prime it 2 or 3 times, switch is on. Ain't gonna pull it any more than that on choke, cause you'll just flood it out. I'll go ahead and take it off choke. It's trying to hit. Seems extremely rich. I can smell fuel. I wonder if the needle and seat in the carburetor's not holding and it's over-richening the fuel that's in your cylinder. Let me give it a little throttle and see what happens. It is running extremely rich. There's an air filter plugged. Looks like a brand new air filter. I wonder if we've got a carburetor needle and seat problem. Way too rich. Let's see, just for the heck of it, what the carburetor screws are set at. That one wasn't but a turn out, so that's not that. If anything, that would have caused it to probably been a little lean on top end. See what the spark plug looks like. I've got the spark plug out of it here, and as you can tell, it's running extremely rich. I'm going to go ahead and do a pressure test on the carburetor and see if there's something going on with it, or I may go ahead and do a vacuum and pressure test on the engine block itself just to make sure we've not got an air leak interfering with the fuel mixture, but I honestly believe it's a carburetor related issue. This thing's got a 3500 fuel filter on it instead of a 3502, which would have been what it would have come with from the factory. My guess is this line's got all squishy and the 3502 wouldn't stay on it, and they put a 3500 on it. We'll go ahead and pop that fuel filter off and pressure test the carburetor. The fuel line is stretched so bad on the end, the 3500 fuel filter just fell off of it. Alright, I'm pressure testing the fuel line and carburetor here, and as you can tell, it's bleeding down. What I'm going to do is clamp off the line at the carburetor to make sure it's not a fuel line issue. Well, that line just broke right there. So what I'm just going to do is just run a line straight to the carburetor and pressure test it that way. Alright, I got the carburetor off of it here. We're going to do a pressure test on it. I've got my tester hooked up to the fuel inlet side on the carburetor. We'll go ahead and switch it to pressure. See what we've got. Alright, as you can tell, it's dropping very quick. Still one more check we can do is the primer side check, and hook the line to the primer return side and see if the check valve's good, see if it pumps pressure into the gauge. Alright, I've got the tester hooked up to the primer return side, and we're going to press the primer bulb and see if it builds pressure in the gauge and holds. Yeah, that part's working, but with the main side on the needle and sheet not holding, that's the reason it's flooding itself to death. We'll go ahead and do a vacuum and pressure test on the crankcase and make sure it's good. And if everything checks out good there, I'll just put a new OEM carburetor on it. I don't rebuild these primer style carburetors. I have in the past, and they'll work good for a little bit, and then they're just finicky. I mean, this thing's probably manufacturing date 10 of 99. If that's the original carburetor, all of the check valves and stuff that's in it is not going to be that great. So it'd be better just to replace it. Alright, I've got it set up here. I've been doing a vacuum and pressure test on it. I've got about 7 inches of vacuum on it. It's holding steady. Switch over to pressure. We're doing about 7 pounds. 5, 6, 7. And it's holding steady on there. Alright, while I'm doing my basic checks on this, I want to do a vacuum test on the fuel tank to make sure the vent in the cap is opening. So I've got my tester set to pressure, or vacuum I mean. We're going to pull a vacuum on it. Alright, and it is releasing. So that means the vent inside the fuel cap is working correctly. Now let's do a pressure test on the fuel tank to see if it's leaking around any of the grommets. These grommets are pretty old, but I ran new lines through them. If it's going to be leaking anywhere, it's probably this old fuel cap. Alright, it's set to pressure, cap's tight. I've got one line plugged off and the other line hooked to my tester. Let's do a pressure test on it. It's slowly building pressure. Let's see if it'll hold it. Slowly leaking down. Let's build it up a little bit and spray a little soapy water on the cap and see if that's where it's leaking. It's more than likely leaking around that old fuel cap. Yeah, that's the reason it's not holding pressure. I don't see anything leaking around the grommets.